Hi, my name is Rhonda Kitchens. I'm the faculty library at the William C. Benatti Library at Big Bend Community College. This is the quarterly event that we sponsor, and we want to share with you the works of wonder that inspires all of our community based in our school community and the people here that have so many awesome things to offer. The library has a page dedicated to the showcase. This is number 4, winter 2022, and we post and share the recordings and video and podcasts for later viewing. This is the outline of events for the program. First of all, as you can see, we have a very active chat room. So if you have questions or other things, we're reading it as we go along. Tiffany will give us some housekeeping rules after we complete this little activity. What I'll be doing today, we're going to do an art project. I'm going to show you the Padlet gallery where that art will go. Rie will do her fantastic, moving, beautiful presentation. Then our Passion Project panel will ask questions. I think it's about 5. And then we're going to open up questions to the audience. So if you have some questions or ideas or things you want to ask Rie, make sure you save them. And Tiffany's going to do a call for them and collect them. And she'll explain that process later. First of all, we're going to review an art instruction by Rie. This is the one-line selfie. So if you can, go ahead and see if you can pick up a piece of paper, a pen, your mobile phone, if it's around, it might be something you can use as well. Now, keep this in mind, don't panic. You don't have to do it right now. We'll be sharing information in the chat. You can also, if you have a panic and you can't get it on the Padlet that I'm about to show you, you can just email it to me and I'll put it up for you. So it's going to be easy, it's going to be fun, and it's okay. So let's check out Rie's video.
Hi, I'm going to show you how to do a one-line portrait, and don't be scared. Don't be scared. It's just drawing. So I'm going to start here on my head, and notice I'm turned just a little bit so you get the side of my face rather than being face full like that, but turn just a little. Start at the top and try not to lift your pen off the paper. I'm going to come back over here to where I started so I can start doing, sorry, I had to fix my hair. Start doing the side of my face. And if you just feel like you're a little car traveling along, you can look at your paper, that's okay. I'm going to do the glasses. Come back down here. And then come in and do my eyes. Remember, we're not looking for photorealism here, we're looking for impression. And then over to the other side for the other eyebrow, and come back to the glasses to do my eye. Ooh. Nose. That little thing under the nose, little mouth. My laugh lines. And then finally my neck. This is going to be hair. And the hair on the other side. And the neck. And I'm done.
All right, I posted some links and to some of the things I'm talking about right now. What we're asking you to do is complete this art challenge and help build a beautiful gallery for Rie. We're going to be her art students for the night. And if you come here, you can use your phone to take a photo of this. It should bring up the link and take you right in. If that doesn't work for you, look in the chat. I have different ways that you can do this. You don't have to do it right now. We're going to be building this throughout the presentation so we can show it all at the end. So don't panic, and we'll help you out when we see your questions in the chat. But if you want to right now, go ahead and take a picture of this barcode. You will go to the page where you can put it together. What you'll be looking for is the hot pink button on the right-hand side. When you click on it, it's going to have a place where you can upload a file. You could put your name here. You could write something incredible to read if you would like to do so, or a bit of a poem. We're good with that. It's a gallery after all. So remember, don't panic. Just work on it, and we'll answer your questions in the chat. So let me go to the next part. Sorry, guys. Tiffany, could you tell us how we're going to organize ourselves for this meeting?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rie. That was a really fun little activity. While everyone is finishing theirs up or uploading, real quickly, just before we get started with our presentation, I just want to remind everyone to please keep themselves muted throughout the presentation. The chat room is open, and we do encourage you to use that throughout the presentation, whether you want to react to what Rie is sharing, or if you want to share some fun memories. I know there's quite a few out there, or if you just want to congratulate her and send some well wishes. The chat is there. Go ahead and hold your questions though until the end, because after the presentation, the panel's going to ask a couple questions, and then we'll open it up to audience Q&A. And so just so that they don't get lost in the mix of things, if you want to save your questions till the end, you can either throw them in the chat, or there is a Q&A function in the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you can use that, and we'll get to those towards the end. But I believe we're going to go ahead and dig into things. So I'm going to hand things over to Dr. Sarah Thompson-Tweedy, who's going to introduce our guest of honor tonight.
Yeah, and that is a distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Rie. And, you know, Rie, you have such a genuine and authentic spirit about you. And it really shows and exudes right from your heart. Okinawa, Japan is where Rie calls home. She was born in the Pottery District of the capital city of Naha. She left that tropical island at the age of 18. Her mother was Okinawan, and her father was from West Virginia. The benefit of two cultures enriched her with the qualities of both. Her art training is in the classical Western tradition, and her aesthetics have always been Eastern. She married young and raised a family before school and training to be an artist, which was her heart's desire. Rie started school at Bakersfield College and went on to receive her bachelor's degree in art at California State University, Bakersfield, then on to New Mexico State University to receive her Master's of Fine Arts in painting and in drawing. She taught New Mexico and El Paso, Texas area prior to teaching at Big Bend Community College. She also worked at the University Art Gallery and Kent Museum as a curator, registrar, collections person, basically whatever they needed doing. Rie has taught at Big Bend since 1998 and has enjoyed the relative quiet of the area. She can focus on her work in her infrequent spare time. And according to Rie's DNA results, she is related to the people who made the terracotta warriors in China. And to her, that seems fitting, since her husband is a ceramics artist and teaches at Big Bend. Rie says it is great to have a colleague and a friend in the family, and Fran is her best supporter. So we are so grateful for Rie's teaching and our community's learning from her tonight. So take it away, Rie.
Thank you, Dr. Tweedy. I welcome all of you, and I'm just so happy to be with you here tonight. I do want to give a shout out to the panel, Dr. Tweedy heading the panel, and then Melinda Owens and Tiffany Fondren, Barbara Bush, who could not be here tonight because she has a class, and Tom Willingham, and not least our implementer of dreams, Rhonda Kitchens. She's been a great tech just guru of everything that we've tried to do here tonight. I know it's almost night. I also want to give a shout out to my friends in Hawaii, Sherry and Russell, and also to my friend Wendy in Cambridge, England. So I'm just happy to share with all of you tonight. And my 3 children, I should mention. They're all here too. So I will attempt to share my screen with you. All right. So this is the poem by Mary Oliver that I'm going to focus on throughout the presentation. And I want you to look for the thread in the artwork that I show. And these are her instructions for living a life. Number 1 is pay attention.
I think we might have a tech problem.
Do
I'm
we?
not sure what's on the screen is not the PowerPoint.
It's not it?
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
a big smiling Sarah.
Oh. What? What are we doing? She got frozen there
we
for a
go.
minute. Okay.
Here we go. I think we're on to some. Oh, no.
Oh, now it's Melinda.
So am I able to share? Has that been enabled for me?
So
Here we
Rie, when you-
go. We got it.
Is that working? Does that work?
We have a black screen. Is that what you have?
Yes, but does it have the Mary Oliver on there?
It does not.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
We're learning as we go, as we've done so much the last couple of years.
This did work the other night.
Yes, and we've all been in this place trying to share and make things happen. So we have a lot of
Yeah, this
patience.
we did this for when we had a run through. Are you able to minimize this and go to your presentation screen?
Is that happening?
No,
Okay.
we see Tiffany on the screen now.
Sorry, folks.
We'll get there. It just takes a little bit sometimes.
Okay.
So we are viewing your screen and it looks like you're selecting the Zoom screen versus whatever other option you have. And that's a
Okay.
lovely.
Well,
I think if you have your PowerPoint up,
There we
there
go.
we
yeah,
go.
is that it?
Yes. Nicely done. Oh, you got it.
Okay. So, thank you, Mary Oliver. These are her instructions for living a life. And number 1, of course, is to pay attention. That's really important for us. Number 2 is to be astonished. And number 3 is tell about it. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about how I tell about the things that I pay attention to. And in order for me to do that, though, I probably need to show you where I come from. So, as you can see, I don't really look any different here. This is me with my mother and my great-grandmother, who would have been about 87 or so at this time. She died at age 93. And as you know, or maybe have heard, that Okinawans are very long-lived, and that was certainly true of her. My mother was a writer, and she was definitely the one who taught me to pay attention and to look for the beautiful in all things, and to know that you can include that as part of your life every day. This is my father. He was from West Virginia, and his nickname was Red. He worked for the State Department and was essentially a project manager, inspector for many of the construction projects for the military. And in fact, I should tell you that my birth certificate was signed by the Secretary of State, Dean Rusk, at the time. So it kind of gives you the age range I'm in. And my father was also the gentlest and kindest person I know. This is the marketplace in the downtown Naha. And the sign there on the left up here says Miyagi Meats. If you remember Mr. Miyagi from the Karate Kid movies. And this enclosed marketplace has just all these little shops down in there. And if you follow this road all the way to the end, you come to the Pottery District, which is known as Tsuboya. And this little guy right here on the left is known as a shisa, or we always call them shishis, actually. And those are guardian spirits that you put on your house, or on the doorposts of your fence coming into your yard, inside your house, by your front door, anywhere like that. Sometimes even on top of rooftops. That marketplace that I showed you is off of a main street that has big, giant, 5-foot tall ones at the beginning of the street. And on this left side here, you see, this is a kiln, and all these pottery shards here in the roots of the banyan tree. And this kiln is called an Anagama Kiln, and it runs up this hillside here. And when it's fired off, it takes, a couple of days. They have to keep the fire going. And depending on where things are in the kiln will determine how hot the temperature is, of course. So that can affect your pottery. And this is right outside that marketplace that I just showed you previously. And this lush green just stuff is everywhere in Okinawa. It just it grows out of the sidewalk. Just the stuff is just so lush because it is a tropical island after all. And some ocean views because it's an island. On the left here is the view that we would pass when we would go to the store when Fran and I went to Okinawa to be with my mother when she was sick. And this little thing is like a little shrine over someone's graveside. And this way in the back here is a high school. So, you know, these lucky kids get to go to school right next to the ocean. And actually I did too. Whoops, I went too fast. And this on the right is an area on the west part of the island called Maida Point. And you can see the beautiful colors of the ocean. And basically you can see ocean just about everywhere you go on the island. Okinawa is quite small. It's about 70 miles long and about 15 miles wide. At the skinniest point, it's 1.5 miles wide, which is where my mother and her family are from. And East China Sea on one side and Pacific Ocean on the other side. And it's a very strategic location for the American military. It was pretty much an American occupied place until 1972 when it was reverted back to Japan and has now become a prefecture of Japan. Okinawans are ethnically different from mainland Japanese people. And They have their own culture and they have their own island and their own language. And they were greatly influenced by China and were great maritime traders back in the 16th, 17th centuries. So this painting here, called The Hidden City of Between, is definitely influenced by the colors of the ocean, as you can see. And it is a chrysanthemum. And I tend to try to find, excuse me, plant life that has that ambiguity about it, where you're not quite sure if it's animal or plant. And this really relates to the fact that I'm Okinawan and I'm American. I'm neither and I'm both. And so that ambiguity is sort of reflected in the types of things that I tend to focus on in my artwork. This is a bunch of willow branches, and that was part of an artist's sculpture down in San Francisco, actually. And I really loved how the branches had this ambiguous look, like bones, kind of, you can see there. And also I love the hole that was in there. In literature and in music, a hole or something missing like that is called a lacuna. And so that's the idea that I was thinking about, how I think oftentimes people feel like something's missing in their life at one time or another. And hopefully we all find that missing thing, but it's definitely a universal sort of feeling, I think. This painting's not that big. It's only 32 inches by 32. So I do like to look at things in different ways. And this happens to be lettuce that has gone to seed. And of course, when you look at seeds, you think about the fact that they will go into the ground and they die, and from that death comes life, and there's a fruit that comes from it, and then towards the end of their lives, then more seed comes, and then there's just this cycle that happens. This is on paper, oil paint on paper, which sometimes can be rather fun to do because the paper is just much more slick to paint on. I'd like this sort of straddling the area between drawing and painting. This is called the mattering map, and this is a tamarind pod filled with seeds. Again, this idea of seeds and the germination of things that can come from the seeds. And the top part is painted, and of course the bottom is drawn on this paper. These are seed pods as well that I have upended. And this started with green and pink ink. You can see little bits of pink and green in here, like in here. And then I covered the entire thing with the charcoal and proceeded to draw with an eraser. So that's what you see here is a lot of the eraser marks all over the place. And then I finally added some more charcoal to sort of emphasize different parts of the piece. So I really wanted to look at these seed pods in a very different way so that you really can't tell what exactly they are. And I think that's a question I've heard a lot, and I think many mixed race people have heard, like, where are you from, or what are you, what's your ethnic background? Those are all different things that we've all heard at one time or another. these are Mylar panels that were 13 feet. I actually went to the museum and measured the distance from their ceiling to the floor in order to make these pieces. And it's painted on the back and drawn on the front. And these things that you see on here are hollyhock seeds and pods. And many of the things that I draw and paint are all things that I find just right in my own yard and have grown myself. These hollyhocks came from New Mexico, and I had the seeds tucked away for about 10 years. And I just thought, well, let's see if something happens, and something did. So life can come from death in some ways. Now, the word koi in Japanese also means love. And that's another thing that's a big part of Japanese culture, is the fact that the language itself can be ambiguous, because it all depends on context. Who you're talking to and what you're talking about makes a huge difference in how the word is perceived. So I like to include some of those kind of words together with the subject matter in the artwork that I do. You know, somebody once defined painting as hanging your guts on the wall. And so you can see that definitely from my work anyway, it's very, very tied into who I am and where I'm from and what I grew up with. I was born in the year of the monkey. And so oftentimes I will use monkeys. And yes, I know this is a chimpanzee in this one, but it stands in as a metaphor for me as a portrait. And the hell money at the bottom is the money that you burn for your ancestors at specific feast days in Okinawa. And that's a Chinese tradition. And so you'll find that much of Okinawan culture comes from Chinese tradition in many ways. This is kind of how we're all feeling now, I think, at the end of the quarter. Please don't take a picture. Where we're just ready to scream. And I'm thanking REM because that's a name of a song that they do. This particular monkey is sitting in a garden, which is my grandmother's garden. And the cement wall behind my father built, and actually my grandmother's house my father built for her. And it was just such a great place to play as a little kid. There was a little pond and tadpoles, and just, she was quite the gardener, and she always had all kinds of things growing. And my grandmother's name was Tsuru. And Tsuru means crane. And so you'll see the Japanese cranes here in this mixed media piece. I do like to sew. And so I've kind of included that in these bits and pieces on this kind of like a collage of drawings and different little things that I've pieced together here. Another piece I did based on that whole idea of collaging and how often our memories are like that. You know, they come in bits and pieces. And if you see here on this particular piece called Duty Bound, this here with all the Japanese writing on it is my family registry. And in Okinawa, and I'm sure this is true in Japan as well, but when you do any kind of business transaction or any kind of administrative bureaucratic transaction, you always have to go and get a copy of your family registry to prove who you are. So in this particular registry, like my parents are listed over here, right here. And this is my mother. And this is me. This is my name here. The paper here is embedded with leaves, and then I painted leaves in here to emulate the real stuff here. This is all raffia that I sewed in here, and how these ties to our families usually never go away. They may be in the background, but they don't typically go away. You'll find that I'm very, very influenced by the Japanese aesthetics that I grew up with. And so I did a number of pieces based on Japanese style of objects and like scrolls. Like, so in this case, in this drawing here, I made this 10-foot scroll and did this drawing of these teasels, which are grown by the side of the road in just about anywhere across the United States. And they were definitely very much all over the place in New Mexico. And I will mention this box here. It's lined with gold leaf and it's pine, but Fran made the box. And he wanted to be sure that everyone who came in the gallery knew that when I hung this piece up. But I do try to find these pieces like this teasel here that grow in the area as a way to identify with the things that I live with. That's why I pick things from my yard too. And another variation of this monogatari, which means story or tale, is this piece here, which I made with silk, and I painted with watercolor on the silk and hung the silk down to sort of emulate a waterfall. And down in here, the paper is paper that has like bits of rice hulls in it. So of course, you know, rice is very, very important in Asian cultures. And the rocks to simulate the like river rocks that you would find underneath a waterfall. And waterfalls are symbolic of cleansing and refreshing and renewing your life. I took sabbatical in 2015. 2016, like fall and winter quarters, and I had two major shows that I had to prepare for, and this show was just really, really fantastic. I invited 5 of my painter friends, 2 from New Mexico, Jacqueline St. Aubin and Tana Cole Dorn. Jacqueline was my teacher and Tana was a peer. And my friend Lisa from Tucson. And then from Moses Lake here, I invited Libby Sullivan and Kim Matthews Wheaton. And we each made 60 of these 4-inch squares without any prompting as to imagery or anything like that. We were just each responsible for making 60. So we ended up with 360 of these squares. And you can see here on this side how they were hung on this grid pattern that we created in the gallery. And on this side, it's just what they look like on the table. And they actually looked really, really neat, just laying on the table. And Indra's net is a Buddhist idea about how interconnected we are. And with every intersection, there's a jewel. And so it's just a reminder to us all that we are always connected. No matter what we may think, we're always connected. And this is a partial view of these panels. There were 6 of these panels, each one with 60 on them. And it was just a really wonderful, wonderful show. It was a great turnout at the museum, and the museum had a record for selling number of pieces too. Quite a few of these pieces sold that night. It was just a really wonderful, wonderful time. So I wanted to show you the source material of my drawing here. And this was just grown right outside my studio door. And the drawing on the right is based obviously on this, but you can also see where I'm selective and I haven't done everything that's on that sunflower. I've left some leaves out, but definitely wanted to remember this sunflower because it's just so beautiful, even in this state where it's gone to seed and leaves are withered. You know, there's a Japanese aesthetic called wabi-sabi, which is quite popular with some designers and some artists. But it's just the idea that even when things are weathered and old and rusted, that you can still find beauty in those things because they have naturally progressed to what they're supposed to do. And this is a painting based on that same sunflower before it got all the way to that very dried out, withering state. The seeds are definitely a challenge. And actually, I really like doing these more intricate type of paintings like this. And I haven't done a lot of painting in the last few years. I've had just trouble with various things, but this is one of the ones I did a couple of years ago, based on a dried out hydrangea and the beautiful subtle tones of color that are in there. And I think even these dried out older flowers are definitely worthy of our attention. I do have a sketchbook practice. Sometimes that's about all the energy I have, so I can just sit and draw in my sketchbook. These are all done with just pen. I just draw with pen, and then occasionally I will add color. And it's really a great way to pay attention, especially if you're traveling. So the one on the left was when we went to Tucson to visit friends, and it's just so much, you just see more things, I think, when you're paying attention. And I just draw things individually and then try to tie it together as I put it on the page. And this little finch was up in the tree right behind our friend's home. And the pod on the right, our other friend had gone hiking and he brought it back for me to draw. And the sketchbook on the right, this beautiful lazuli bunting came to my feeder, and it's the only time I've ever seen it. And I've never seen another one yet. And that was on Mother's Day. It came to the bird feeder we have in the back. So it was just a wonderful little bird to capture and remember that moment. And I also tried to capture the things that are growing in my yard at the time. So I had lupin blooming and irises were blooming, and balsa root was blooming around in this area too. You find that, I find anyway, if I draw something, I'm going to see it. I'm really going to see it. If you just take a picture with your phone, you forget about it along with the other 1,000 pictures you have in your phone. So if I could recommend anything, it would be to just, you know, spend some time looking at things and drawing them down. And like anything, you know, drawing is a practice, and you get better when you practice. Creativity is that way too. You get more creative as you practice. And you get an idea when you get an idea. So I think it's important to do. And then finally, this is kind of where it all began for me in graduate school anyway. This was my first successful painting that I did. And I do love this painting. I still have it. And it was a mix of oil and charcoal. And then I sewed it in this kind of Japanese scroll form. It is a little over 6 feet long. And it's just a good reminder to pay attention and to be astonished and to tell about the things that we find in our lives. Herman Melville said, "It is not down in any map. True places never are." So it's just a good reminder to really look around at our environment and the people that we have in our lives and to hold them precious. And I think that's it. Okay. And I would welcome any questions if you have questions. I guess the panel has questions first, though.
Yes, the panel is going to, Tom is going to be first up to ask a question. We'll roll through those. And Tiffany could you tell us again how you'd like to collect questions, Tiffany?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can either put your questions in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and monitor that just to see if anyone throws any in there. And we'll try to get to all of them. But there also is a Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You'll see it next to your raising hand and reactions options. And so if you enter your questions there, that would be helpful for us too.
So I realize there's no such thing as a dumb question, but after watching your presentation, now I wonder. But my question is, Rie, if you hadn't chosen art as your career or the thing that you do, what would have been your second passion?
Well, from a young age, I have loved to read. And I always wanted to be a librarian, Rhonda. And as soon as I could read, actually, my dad took me to the library every Saturday, and I would come home with a pile of books. And I always had a book in my hand, always. So all through elementary school, I helped out at the school library. In high school, I was also an assistant in the library there too. So yeah, I would have loved to have been a librarian. And, you know, I'm getting close because I think I'm gathering all the books in my house.
It looks like Tim might have a spot for you out there.
You think?
I love your storytelling, Rie. And
Oh,
my question kind of is related to that, I think. In your artwork, Hidden City in Between, it alludes to having found your own unique place between traditions and family in Japan and arts and crafts of the Southwest and Northwest. So from your perspective, how can others fuse these separate parts of ourselves with artistic expression?
And, you know, that's a really tough question. I think those are things that people have to find for themselves. This is the path that I took. And it really did come from paying attention to the things that I care about. And I think, number one, that's one of the things that often so many people don't know what they care about themselves. And it's good to do research. You know, if you have an artist that you follow or like or love, you know, do all the research you can about that artist and find out what their process is like and what their work is like and all of that. And then glean from that. Not that you have to copy what they did, but you glean from it. Take those things that you think are good and then try to incorporate it with yourself. So there's no shortcuts at all for anybody. I suppose if I could have written it all in a book, maybe that would have been nice, but I think those books have already been written by many other people. So, but thank you for that question. It's a tough question. Huh?
I think you might have a book in you from hearing you
You
speak.
think?
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
don't know. Thank you. Did that answer your question? Okay.
All right. So, hi, Rie. Thanks for sharing all of that. My question was, you know, I don't have a background in art. And so I kind of wanted to know, you know, what would you say to someone, you know, like me or a student or just anyone who is, you know, tries their hand at being creative or, you know, tries their hand at art and they're not exactly, you know, happy with their first outcome or even early outcomes. Any advice for people in those situations?
Well, I remind students all the time about that first time that you made pancakes and how horrible they were because the batter was too thick and then you had the heat up too high and you burnt them, but they were raw in the middle. You know, it's practice. It really is all about practice until you get to the thing that you want for yourself and you figure out, oh, I don't like my pancakes so thick. I like them thinner. I don't like them so brown or black, as the case may be. And that the stove actually has more than just on and off. There are like little buttons in between and you can turn the heat down. And all of those things you have to figure out by doing it. And so I would say, you know, start a practice. Even if all you do is just, you know, draw your breakfast every day, or do it for 3 days and then see where you are, or do it for 5 days or whatever, you know. You just have to kind of figure it out that way. But as I said earlier, there are no shortcuts, and everybody has different seasons in the work that they do. I had a time when it was like 9 months and nothing I did was any good. But I knew I had to go through that to get to the place where I could make something that was worth it. So persevere and practice. That's really the best advice that I can give. And I'm talking to myself as well. I hope that was plenty.
It is. I'm going to stand in for Barbara, Dr. Barbara Bush. Did you ever doubt you were an artist?
Well, let me tell you, I thought about it, and I thought back to when I was younger, like 7, 8, and the drawings that I did back then. I was always on stage in the middle with curtains drawn at the side. So no, I didn't. I never did. This is all I've ever wanted to do. And that's just what I went for.
I think that's amazing. I'm going to become myself again. I follow you on Instagram. And I shared your Instagram account with others so they can also have that joy, because you inspire me on the things you work with and just all the wide range of techniques you have available to you. What type of items and techniques do you use to put these together? Because it seems to be all types of things, and sometimes I can't identify them. And how do you stay engaged in this process?
Well, I think as far as the sketchbooks themselves, I just use pen and watercolor. And keeping my hand in to draw every day. And it's something I need to do every day, or I will kind of get lost from the process. I'm not sure exactly which pieces you're referring to on the Instagram as far as the different mediums. But
the sunflower more recently was just beautiful.
that was just watercolor and pen. So I do like the more old-fashioned materials. And like I love oil paints. I do not like acrylics at all because, you know, they're made of plastic and they tend to look like that most of the time. I like charcoal. I'm not so crazy about pencil, but I will use pencil sometimes. But so yeah, I like to mix things up, and often I forget what I used when I've done a piece. So that can be a problem. And so that's where I think journals are helpful. I try to write things down as much as possible. And I am not so big on working on devices. I really feel it's important to use all your senses, because then it becomes meaningful to you that way. Otherwise, I mean, I know you can make great digital stuff on a screen or on a computer or whatever, but there's still that piece of glass between you, you know, and you don't get to actually feel what you're doing. So yeah, I'm exactly not sure where to go with this question. I don't know
You're
if I've
doing
answered
wonderfully.
anything, if I touched on anything for you, but
You absolutely did, at least 3 places.
okay, good.
Thank you. And I think Tiffany will now open questions to the audience.
Yeah, awesome. So we already have quite a few questions that have come in. So if you haven't already, go ahead and use the Q&A function within Zoom, or you can toss it in the chat as well. So I'll just kind of get started. So Rie, what are you reading nowadays?
Well, I tend to read several books all at once because I like different things at different times of the day. In the morning, I tend to read nonfiction. And so I'm reading Sharon Salzberg, who's a Buddhist teacher. And I can't even think of the name of the book right now, but it's about coping strategies with inequities and things that are going on in the world. And I'm reading a book called The Weight of Ink. Thank you, Jennifer McCarthy, for recommending that book. It's just an awesome, awesome book about Jewish history in London, and professor who finds this stack of old letters from a blind rabbi to another rabbi. And so that's a great book. There's another book I'm reading about a photographer who took pictures of angels called Everything Affects Everyone. And that book, I feel like she's just inside my head, because she's just like gone through the list of all the things that I love, and she mentions everything in that book. So that's been fun to read too. Is that all I'm reading? I have a couple of others as well, but that's plenty for now.
I know those are all great titles. So you talked a little bit about daily practice. Another question that we got, it just says, I know that you value your sketchbook practice. Do you think in having a daily creative practice that it's important for it to be in one's usual medium?
I do think it needs to be a consistent thing. That way it keeps your focus, so you're not all over the place trying everything. And several years ago, when I was feeling kind of without focus, I came to the realization I can do anything, but I can't do everything. So I really had to kind of focus down and eliminate things in my life. So yeah, I definitely think it's important to stick with one thing for a while. And then you could, switch up later, but the practice again.
Yeah, gotcha. So I think this is a question that maybe a few people have. Will you consider teaching part-time online for Big Bend after retirement? I, parentheses, we would still love to learn from you.
That's not in my future plans as right now. We'll see how bored I get in retirement, right? Thank you very much.
Yeah. So another question. I can't help but think about how you may have put your work into practice with raising your kids. This day and age, I see your practice so important for kids today. Any thoughts on that?
I went back to school when my youngest was 4. And then I have 3 kids. So I did wait until they were kind of out of the baby toddler stage. And I think they all, they grew up knowing that I worked on things, and they knew when to leave me alone. And they also, everybody went to bed at 8 o'clock so that mom could actually sit down and think a little bit for herself. So, organization is all very, very important. And certainly, I think for kids too, yeah, they could certainly participate in a daily practice in drawing and writing. And I limited television with my children when they're growing up. And as a result, they're all they have all kinds of varied interests, and they're all big readers, and they all do all kinds of interesting things, and they know how to talk to people. They can look people in the eye of any age and talk to them. So yeah, all of that, I guess, it all works together.
Great, thank you. So I guess I don't see any other questions in the chat. If you have a question you'd like to ask, there's still some time to sneak that in if you want to put that in the chat or in the Q&A box. But unless something comes in here in the next couple seconds or minute, I think we addressed everyone's questions. Oh, we got one. Tim wants to know, has living in Moses Lake influenced your work?
Oh, absolutely. I love the wide open spaces. I love the stark light that can occur with like really strong sunlight on objects. And you can see that in some of my pieces. They have very, very strong shadows and things like that. Yeah, and the birds that are here are wonderful. I didn't include very many birds in my presentation, but I do like to do birds as well as floral things and plant things and monkeys and all of that. But definitely, I'm always looking to the environment that I live in for influence and for subjects for my work. And I came here at the same time as Tim, I want you guys to know, so.
Real quick, Rie, someone was asking what the title of the book about the photographer, what was that again?
Everything Affects Everybody by Shauna LeMay is the artist.
Thank you. So another question, what motivates you to keep creating? And what do you do when you're stuck, AKA blank canvas?
That doesn't happen, honestly. I read several books at one time. I usually work on several things all at once. So if I'm stuck on one thing where I'm not quite sure what to do next, I go to another thing, and then I can come back to that if I get a different idea. And What else do I do? Well, I did have a friend who told me that it's good to drink like 3 pots of coffee and then turn on talking heads really, really loud. And then you can't help but just sort of give it out onto the canvas, you know? So, so yeah. And sometimes it's just, you know, all I can do is just put a collar down for a background. It may not have any imagery or anything else, but that's okay to do. That's also part of the process. So
Yeah.
A very interested party is asking how you feel about long walks on the beach.
yeah, I wonder who asked that. Only with pina coladas, right?
Yeah.
There you go. So 2 people actually, we had a question in the chat as well as one in the Q&A, specifically about the birds that you showed. Do you draw the birds live or from memory? Do you reference a picture? What is your process?
Usually, to try to be accurate, I do reference a picture. So if I didn't get a picture of the actual bird right then I will look for one, you know, like for an image to work from.
Great.
So,
so you kind of sort of answered this one. Would you do a for fun class, occasional session for those of us who are wannabes? So
well,
not necessarily affiliated.
Well, as we are able to gather together, I think we just need to have a drawing party at our studio.
I think that's going to be a crowd favorite. Awesome. And so I think that we covered all the questions. Of course, you answered the burning walks on the beach question. If anyone has any last minute ones they'd like to sneak in. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your life experience with us, Rie. That was all really wonderful. I don't see any more, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Rhonda.
Okay, that's great. Do you guys see the gallery?
Woo.
And I'm going to put, as soon as I figure out where I put it, the chat, I'm going to put a link so you could go there and see it yourself. It's not too late to add something there if you'd like to do so, but hope you see all the wonderful, lovely people who participated in the art project. And this is really quite awesome. So thank all of you for that. And if you want to go in and like or send little messages to the people who bravely did these pieces, I have the link right there for you in the chat to enjoy it. And I'm just going to quickly close. I did put in the chat also a request for feedback. This is the 4th show that we've done, and we do one every quarter. We're currently trying to put together the one for spring, and we're hoping to put something very new and different, exciting for you. And we're really hoping it may be in person, but we don't know. But it may be our first in-person one. So part of the feedback we're asking about is, what would you like that to look like? Like, what would you like to come to? Even tell us times, dreams, food, whatever. Give us some thoughts so we can think about it. In the meantime, because my boss is attending, I want to make sure all of you know to go and check out the library's resources. We have 174 databases, and we have 2 that are fresh, beautiful, and look really great in Canvas, by the way. And that will be Flipster. That's going to contain a lot of full color magazines. It looks great on the iPad, beautiful on your phone, desktop, and it's like reading an imprint book. It has the full color images. And if you're an artist, you're going to really love it. And Ceramics is one of the magazines in that group. The other thing we want to make sure you know about, it has 78,000 videos. We began adding our own video using Jessica Strickland's conversation about the Ukraine, and that's academic video online. And if you have any questions about those, ask the library, because we're all here and we want to talk about the really great products we have to help you out with your courses, your classes, and your research, and the whole deal. And I think that's everything. Does anybody from the panel have anything to add? Melinda, Tom, or anybody? All right. Well, Melinda, I think, yes, and look at our beautiful faces.
Bravo.
Yes.
Thank
So,
you, Rie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you guys. It was a beautiful thing. And thank you so much, Rie. You inspired me yet again. Always. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Rhonda, I did want to add real quick too that we are recording this, and so if you hopped in part of the way through, or you want to go back at some point and revisit some of Rie's pieces, we will have this uploaded to the library Facebook page, the Big Bend Facebook page, end of this week or next week.
Yes, that's right. We are on Anchor FM, so you can find us on Spotify and other wonderful places that carry our podcast.
And Rhonda, if you want to put your email in the chat again, someone mentioned they had some problems putting the picture. Another option is emailing it to Rhonda, and we can add it to the gallery for you.
I just put it in there, and I have added a few people, and I'll be glad to keep adding, because I'd like to share this like at a Throwback Thursday on the library's Facebook page. Also, please like us. And so you could see the wonderful, where we all got to be students together with Rie at least one last time if she never comes back to give us courses again. So that'll be great. And I think that's it. So I hope to see you guys next quarter for our super exciting new passion project showcase. So make sure you give us
Thank
some
you all very
feedback.
much.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.